Hello Stampers, welcome to the craft room. I've had a bunch of requests to demonstrate how I made these lovely 3D flowers. Some people have said they look like roses, and so I wanted to show you how I made those. And I'm probably going to do a series of videos showing you how to make similar flowers just using some different products. So for this project we're going to be using this Sizzix die. This Sizzix die is called the Decorative Accent with Flower and Leaves die, and I just ran it through the Big Shot so that you could see the pieces that you get. For our purposes, for each of these flowers, we're going to need 3 of these die cut flowers. So I have 3 here in 3 different shades so that hopefully it'll be easier to see. First we're going to take our crimper and we're going to run them through the crimper, and we're just going to run them through once, and don't worry, on the finished flower you won't see the crimping. We're doing this just to break down the fibers of the paper a little bit, just to make them a little bit easier to manipulate and to curl. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our paper snips, and on one of the flowers, and I'm going to make it the darkest color on the cherry cobbler flower, we're just going to cut in between 2 of these petals, and you're going to cut into the center. Now I know some of you will probably want to determine exactly where the center is. I find that it's fine if you just kind of eyeball it. That's not a problem. On the next layer, and I'm going to use the Melon Mambo layer, you're actually going to just cut away one of the leaves. So again, cutting into the center, and you're going to want to do this carefully only because we want to preserve this. We're going to use this petal or leaf, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's a petal later on. So we're just cutting into the center and preserving or saving, that one petal for later. And finally, on the light pink layer, we're going to cut away 2 of the petals, again trying to cut into the center of the flower and removing those 2 petals. And again, save those because we're going to use them. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to use some crystal effects. So we're going to keep that open here. And what we're going to do, hopefully this is malleable enough now, we're going to bring this flower together, one petal right over the other. And if you're somebody who doesn't like any of this overlapping stuff, you can go ahead and cut away those places where the petal is popping through. You don't want to cut away the whole thing though, because we're going to be gluing it together here. So we're going to go ahead and place a little bit of crystal effects right on that part. And again, you're going to fold that over and you're just going to hold it until it adheres. Your second layer, we're going to use the Mellow Mambo layer. And again, we're doing the exact same thing. So we're just folding one petal on top of the other, and you'll see it kind of makes a little cup. So again, we're just going to use some crystal effects. You're just going to hold that until it adheres, and then you're going to set it aside. And finally, we're going to do that to the Pretty in Pink layer, the exact same thing. This one may take a little bit more cajoling, so if you kind of lift it up just a little bit and then go ahead and get that right over. If you want to cut away that little overhang, that's fine. And again, we're just going to glue the petal to the other petal to hold that in place. So the other tools that we're going to need are tools that you may actually have in your kitchen, or maybe you have them in your craft room. I use 2 different size skewers. This big one, which I think is for making shish kebabs, is kind of a nice size. And this one, bigger than a toothpick. I'm not sure where I got this one, but just 2 objects that can help you round things. So we're going to start with the biggest layer, so the bottom layer, and we don't have to cut away the center. Actually, if you push down on the center, you can pretty much flatten this flower pretty good. And then what we're going to do is use the larger skewer to try to roll these petals away from the center. And we're just going to do that with all of these petals. We're also going to be doing this for the second layer. So again, rolling these petals away. And also for this middle layer, the 3-petal layer, we're going to roll those away as well. Now, to put these pieces together, you can, if you want your flower to be pretty raised, you can go ahead and just use Crystal Effects to adhere those together like that. If you want a little bit of a flatter profile, you can come in here and carefully go ahead and just snip that bottom off. And that way you're creating a little bit of a lower profile, and you can do that again on this one as well. So to put these together, again, we're just going to use some Crystal Effects. You can move your flower around to see exactly where you want it to sit. So I like it there. And then for the next layer, exact same thing. So for these last two, what we're going to do is use a combination of the bigger skewer and the smaller skewer. So here I'm just trying to get these petals started in a bit of a circular motion. I'm kind of using my skewer to kind of wrap just a little bit, really trying to break down the fibers in the paper a bit so it starts to want to curl. Then I'm going to open it up and I'm going to come here and just like we did with the other petals, I'm going to fold these petals back. And it's okay if your paper starts to separate a little bit. Don't worry about that. It'll look fine in the flower. We're going to try to get it to start to curl around. Can you see that? I hope. And then this one we're going to kind of get to curl around. So hopefully you're getting a good impression of what it is that I'm trying to do. And this will take a little bit of practice. I've been sick for a few days and working on these, so it's been a lot of fun. But you can kind of get the idea there. And then what you're going to do is pull it off the skewer, and we're going to use some Crystal Effects to adhere this together. Okay, and now finally we're on this last and final petal. Again, you're going to want to fold that petal back. And this one I found it easier to use the smaller skewer just right in the center of that petal. And I'm going to try to keep that folded back as I do this. You're just going to want to try to wrap that little one right around that little skewer. And if you want to roll it just a little bit to try and get it circular, that's great. And this one we're not going to glue together. The sides aren't long enough to glue together. So I'm going to bring our flower back. And again here, if you want to lower the profile of your flower a little bit, you're going to cut off the bottom part of this center and then go ahead and use some Crystal Effects on it and put it into the center of your flower. And then finally this last piece I am going to cut off part of this bottom before I stick it in the middle, again to lower the profile, lower the height. Put some Crystal Effects there on the bottom. I like to go to the part that doesn't seem to have a petal, so kind of stick it in the middle and then press down. And that's it. That's your entire flower put together. You'll want to give it a little bit of time to dry so that the Crystal Effects can dry. The other thing that I like to do, and you can do this before or after, I like to do it after, is play around with the flower a bit. I like to spray it, so in a spray bottle I've combined the champagne mist shimmer paint and some alcohol. This will probably work, just rubbing alcohol. This will probably work with water as well. And I just like to shake that up. And then I like to give my flower a number of sprays. I spray it like 4 or 5 times to try and give it some shimmer. And I like to spray it in a little plastic container. So again, just shake that up and give it about 4 or 5 sprays to give it a little bit of shimmer. It's probably really hard to see on the video, but it gives it really some nice sparkle. And then you can go ahead and let that dry and adhere them to your cards. I used hot glue to actually adhere these 3 to the cards. I'm sure you could use some Crystal Effects. When it came to adhering them, though, I wanted it to dry instantly. You could probably use dimensionals also, because remember, we didn't cut out the bottom of the first layer of your flower, and just so you can see the profile. I hope you've enjoyed this project. I hope you have a lot of fun making these 3D flowers. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thanks so much. Take care.